3 flat.
Yes, good afternoon, students. Welcome back. Okay, welcome to this episode of Agriculture, a series of lessons for holiday. Remember the last time we met? Well, we were doing the last parts of economics, like I told you. Yesterday, we studied gross margins and farm budgeting. Today, we shall mainly look at costs in agriculture. However, like I told you the other time, in case there are people who didn't have a clear understanding of the work we did the other time, I requested that you give feedback, and I managed to receive feedback from a number of you. So, because of that, before we go to our topic of today, I'll request that we have a brief review of the work we did the other time, because about 4 students still had challenges with how we calculate elasticities of both demand and supply. So before we start our business of today, remember I told you today we shall mainly be looking at costs in agriculture. But because of having a slight issue with our colleagues, what we are going to do, we shall have a simple review, not full, a simple review of how we do calculations of elasticity. Then after that, there's some work I've organized for you which you have to try, but still in case you get issues, don't fear. You can get back to us. We shall always find ways of getting back to you. Like I said, I got a request from colleagues that they didn't understand the elasticity part. So please bear with us. Let me take you through briefly. Okay? So remember we said when you are calculating elasticity, we look for 4 things in a given question. Now, whether it is of demand or of supply, there are 4 key things that we need to know. We need to know the original price. We need to know the original price. We need to know the original price. We need to know the new price. We need to know the new price. We need to know the new price. We need to know the original quantity. Then after knowing the original quantity, we also need to know the new quantity. So as you can see on the screen, I said we are going to have a review, a simple review of how we calculate what? Elasticity. So we are going to start with the one of demand, and after that one of demand, we shall also look at that of supply. But like I said, the principle is basically the same. So when you see on your screen there, that PED is representing price elasticity of demand. And when we said we calculate the price elasticity of demand, we said we calculate the price elasticity of demand by calculating the percentage change in the quantity demanded. Then we divide all that by the percentage change in price. We divide all that by the percentage change in price. Now, if you can see the screen, we are having PED there, percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. Now, if you look at the equation there, If you look at the equation there, if you look at the equation, we're having Q2 minus Q1 over Q1. We're having Q2 minus Q1 over Q1, all divided by P2 minus P1 over P1. Now, I told you the other time that whenever you're calculating elasticity, we look for our Q1, we look for Q2, we look for P1, and we look for P2. Now, I told you that Q1 represents the original quantity, Q2 represents the new quantity, then P1 represents the original price, P1 represents the original price, and P2 represents the new price. Now, whatever question that you will be given, you have to look for these four things here: Q1, Q2, P1, P2. Now, when you get those four items, it's a matter of remembering this formula. Now, we're having Q2 minus Q1 over Q1 divided by P2 minus P1 over P1. But remember, we're getting percentage change. So it is multiplied by 100, and also multiplied here by 100. Now, I remember telling you the other time that since we have 100 as a numerator and 100 as a denominator, the hundreds cancel out. That's why you remain with this formula here: Q2 minus Q1 over Q1 divided by P2 minus P1 over P1. The hundreds disappear and we have this, they cancel out. So in your question, once you have gotten these four things, it's just a matter of substituting them. It's a matter of substituting them in the formula. Okay? It's a matter of substituting them in the formula. So if you are given an example, for example, someone says that the demand may be for a particular product. Now let's go specific. Let's try out one example here. If someone says the demand for a specific product, maybe a demand for sugar in maybe in Tinder market was 50 kilograms. When the price, the demand was 50 kilograms, when the price was 3,000, and when the price changed to 4,000, the demand reduced to 30 kilograms. Now, the first quantity is our Q1. The next quantity of 30 here is our Q2. The first price of 3,000 is our P1, and the new price of 4,000 is our P2. Now, once you have this information, it's a matter of getting our formula where we say Q2 minus Q1 over Q1, all divided by P2 minus P1 over P1. Now, you know where the 100s have gone. Remember, it is percentage, but the 100s have cancelled out. So, once you have this formula and you have your information, it's just a matter of substituting. So, where you have Q2, our Q2 is 30. So, you set 30 minus our Q1, which was 50. We divide it by our Q1, which was 50. We divide all that by our P2, remember original price was this one, P2 is 4,000, minus the original, which is 3,000, divided by the original, which is 3,000. So, we have replaced this formula using the figures we have obtained from the question. So now it's just a matter of simplifying this. Remember we said when you're calculating elasticity, we do not regard the negative sign. For example, we have 30 minus 50. It is supposed to be negative 20, but we take it as 20. So we shall have 20 out of 50, all divided by, this is 1,000 out of 3,000. And from your mathematics, you can easily see that this 0 can go out with that 0. Then these 3 zeros also go with this. So we shall remain with 2 out of 5, all divided by 1 out of 3. So once you reach this, now this is mathematics, fraction. You have 2 out of 5. When you're dividing fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal of the next fraction. So we shall have this times 3 over 1, which is 6 out of 5. When you simplify this, you get 1 point something. So this is how we go through our calculations of elasticity, be it of demand or of supply. What you need to remember is this formula here. If you can remember Q2 minus Q1 over Q1, all divided by P2 minus P1 over P1, you are good to go. Whenever you're given a question, the only things you look for are the original quantity demanded, the new quantity demanded, the original price, and the new price. Okay? So, I hope that is clear. Now, when you go to the case of supply, on your screen you can see an example there. There's an example there where in the month of June in the Owino market, a bag of fertilizer was costing 20,000 shillings. I hope you see that on your screen. In the month of June 2020 in the Owino market, a bag of fertilizer costed 20,000 shillings. And when the price was 20,000, farmers demanded 140 bags. Now, from that example, we are saying 20,000, and at 20,000 the demand was 140 bags. But when the price of the fertilizer rose to 40,000, remember we said for the case of demand, when the price rises, the quantity demanded decreases. That's why you are seeing a change from 140 bags to 100 bags. Now, in that question there, in the example there, like I said, there are 4 things that you need to identify. What was the original price? What is your new price? What was the original quantity? And what is the new quantity? Once you get those 4 items out, it's just a matter of remembering your formula. We said we calculate elasticity by getting percentage change in quantity demanded. And I remember emphasizing the other time that when you're getting percentage change, change is not the same as difference. You get the new minus the old out of the old. That's how we get change. On the screen there you can see we're saying percentage change in is quantity demanded over percentage change in price. Now, in our step 2 there you see we're saying new demand minus original demand divided by original demand, and you multiply it by 100. So once you have sorted that out, you also come to change in price. You look at the new price minus the original price out of the original price. Now, here I didn't cancel out these hundreds. I wanted to show you that even if you calculate with the hundreds there, at the end of the day, the work is the same. So when you simplify that, you come to 28.6 as the change in the change in the quantity demanded. And when you come to the price, you see that the change in the price there is 20 out of 20, 40 minus 20 out of 20, you get 1. When you multiply 1 by 100, that's why you have this 100 this side. So at the end of the day, our elasticity is going to be the change in quantity, which is 28.6 out of the change in price, which is 100. Okay? So when you go to how to calculate elasticity of supply, when you go to how we calculate elasticity of supply, which is the principle is the same. The principle is the same. You need to know that for the case of elasticity of supply, even if, okay, whether it is elasticity of supply or elasticity of demand, the principle is the same. We are getting percentage change. If it is supply, we get percentage change. I think you can see that on your screen. For the case of supply, we get percentage change in the quantity supplied. If it is demand, percentage change in the quantity demanded. But whatever question you are given, just look for the 4 things I told you. Look for the original price, look for the new price. Look for, for this case we shall say, look for the original quantity supplied and look for the new quantity supplied. The formula is the same. Okay? The formula is the same. The method of working out is the same. Okay? So we have some exercise for you. There's some exercise for you that I will want you to try. And yes, there are 2 numbers there. One is for demand and one is for supply. You may be wondering how you're going to copy this work very fast. No, you can take your time. After the lesson, you can review. Okay? Up to that point, you can pause at your wanting, copy out those questions and try them out. Once you are able to do those 2 questions, then it means that calculations of elasticity will not be a problem to you. But now, as I conclude this review before we go to our business for today, remember we said we have 3 types of elasticity. We have elastic, we have inelastic, and we have unit. Now, when do we say elasticity is unit? We say elasticity is unit when you calculate the value, or what you call the coefficient of elasticity, and it is equal to 1. When you calculate a value and you get a value greater than 1, it means elastic. That means a small change in price caused a big change in the quantity either demanded or supplied. Then when you get a value which is less than 1, it implies that a big change in price caused a small change in the quantity either supplied or demanded. Okay? So I think that is a good review. I request that you try. I request that you try. I trust that you try out the 2 exercises that I've given you, and then you will give us feedback. But for today, our main business is costs in agriculture. Now, you realize as farmers carry out farming, there are costs that they incur. There's no way you can carry out farming and you don't spend. Remember when you're introducing agriculture economics, we said that for production to take place, 4 factors are key, what we call factors of production. And we said most of those factors of production are scarce. Our factors of production are scarce, and therefore we need to find ways of using them in the best way possible. When you say something is scarce, that implies that to get it, you have to spend a lot of money. Okay? You need to spend a lot of money. But now, you may be asking yourselves, what is a cost? A cost just means a monetary value that you attach to an item or a good or a service. For example, if you go to buy a hoe, what you pay for the hoe, the amount you pay is the cost for the hoe. If you hire someone to work on your farm, maybe to dig half an acre, okay? The amount you pay that person is a cost. That will be cost of labor. But what you need to realize is that in agriculture, there are some costs which are easily noticed, but there are others which are hidden. So we have costs that are direct, and you have costs that are indirect. The direct ones are simple to manage because you can't forget them. but the indirect ones are complicated. At the end of the day, you may think you have made a lot of profit when actually there are costs that you didn't consider. Therefore, it is very important that a farmer gets a good understanding of these different types of costs. So, students, I need to be very alert here because we have a number of costs in agriculture, but the costs vary. We need to understand them. Which cost is which? What challenges are associated with the different costs? Okay? So let's go direct to the types of costs. If you can see on your screen, we have costs that we call explicit costs. The word is explicit. It's a technical term, therefore you need to learn the spelling. Now, when you talk of explicit costs, we say that they are costs that you can easily recognize and quantify. You can't forget them. For example, if I'm maybe a poultry farmer, I go to the market to buy feeds for my birds. There's no way I can forget that I spent money on the feeds. If I went to buy a fertilizer, or if I paid someone who worked for me, there's no way I can forget that I hired someone and I paid him. So those costs which you can easily recognize, those costs which are easy to identify, are what we call explicit costs. I'm emphasizing the word explicit because the next type of cost, it is the opposite. It is what we call implicit. The explicit ones are easy to recognize, while these implicit ones are hard to recognize, and most times we end up forgetting them. So, one, we are saying explicit costs. They are costs that are easily recognized and we can easily quantify them. We can't forget them. Cost of fertilizer, cost of animal feeds, cost of hired labor, cost of seeds, cost of fuel, etc. There's no way you can spend on those items and you forget that you spent on them. Now the second type of costs are what we call the implicit costs. Now these implicit costs are not easily recognized. Explicit is recognized. Implicit not easily recognized. Now you may be wondering which type of costs are these. Take an example. I know you're in a holiday. Some of you help your parents, maybe in the garden or in the shop in town. But when you go with your parent to the shop, maybe in the morning, you can help work from morning to evening. When you are going back home, what happens is that you are told that yes, let's close up and go home. When you're going home, you are not paid. But remember, you have been working. If you were not there, maybe your parent would have hired someone to work in your place. And if you had hired that person, there's no way they would hire someone for free. So the best example of an implicit cost is the cost of family labor. Cost of family labor. I can't work for my father and I begin demanding that daddy pay me. Now, if you have a neighbor who is operating a shop but hired someone to work in that shop, for you are helping your father. At the end of the day, your neighbor may get a profit of 1 million after a month. Then for you, the father gets a profit of 1.1, which is 1,100,000. So you may think you made more profit than your neighbor, when actually you are supposed to remove that value of your labor. You don't work for free. Okay? Then secondly, we have a scenario here. If I'm the farm is mine. I render service to that farm. I do things on that farm. But there's no way I would pay myself. Me, I would think that I have made a lot of profit. And yet, if I had hired someone to manage for me that farm, I would pay that person. So the value of my labor is an implicit cost. And most times when you are calculating profit, we tend to ignore them. You think you have made a lot of profit. When you have not, the business is different from you. You are not the business. Because if you are not there, you have to hire someone, and you don't hire people for free. Okay? Then we have the third type of costs, what you call the variable costs. Now, I understand yesterday, or in your previous lesson, you looked at how we calculate gross margins. Now, in your calculation of gross margins, you used variable costs. Now, the teacher must have explained to you, but I'm going to repeat. The word variable comes from the English word vary. Not to be constant, to change. So these variable costs are costs that change with the level of production. When your level of production is high, they are high. When your level of production is low, the variable costs are low. Now, you may ask yourself, what are the examples of these variable costs? Take an example of cost of feeds. If I'm a poultry farmer, maybe I've not yet got enough money, and I'm keeping 10 birds in my poultry house. 10 birds. And I'm feeding them on 5 kilograms of feeds per day. If I get some money and I increase the number of birds from 10 to 20, I'm not going to feed them on 5 kilograms like where I was feeding 10 birds. I will have to add the amount of feeds. Why am I adding the amount of feeds? Because I've increased my scale of production. So there's no way I can feed 10 birds on 5 kilograms and again feed 20 birds on 5 kilograms. Okay? So that is an example of a variable cost, or cost of fertilizer. If I'm applying a fertilizer, I want you to have a small idea. If you remember the map of the school very well, the lower pitch. If you're applying a fertilizer on that lower pitch alone, you may use about 20 bags of fertilizer. But if you decided to apply, if you decided to cultivate land both on the lower pitch and the upper pitch, you will have to add more fertilizer. So the amount of fertilizer you are adding is varying based on how much you are producing. So those costs that change with the level of production are what you call variable costs, and they are specific to particular enterprises. Now, there's something you need to note here. When you're not producing, you don't spend on these variable costs. If I'm not keeping birds, why would I buy feeds? Okay? If I'm not cultivating, why would I buy fertilizer? You only incur costs that are variable when you are producing. Then the next type of costs are what you call the fixed, or what you call overhead costs. Now, these costs do not change with the level of production. What that implies is that whether you are producing or not, you have to meet them. Whether you are producing or not, you have to meet them. And the best example here is rent. The best example here is rent. If you have rented an area, the landlord or your boss has given you the area, you have allowed, you have agreed. There's no way you're going to tell him that, yes, landlord, I have not put any chicken there, so I'm not paying rent. That can't be. Whether you are putting chicken there or you're not putting chicken there, so long as you rented a place, you have to pay rent. So rent is an example of a fixed cost. Then the other example is like salary of permanent workers. Me, I'm a permanent worker, for example. Now, we are in holiday. There's no way the school can refuse to pay me. Whether I'm working or not, I am a permanent worker, I'm entitled to salary. There's no way you're going to tell me that you're in holiday, so you're not supposed to get salary. Or you have your tractors there. There's no way you're going to say, since I'm not using the tractor, I'm not going to maintain it. Okay? So those costs that are always there, and you have to continue paying them whether you're producing or not, we call them fixed costs. And I'm saying examples here, we have like rent, salaries of permanent workers, your taxes, and the like. Okay? Then our next type of cost Our next type of cost is what we call total cost. Now, total cost is just a sum or a summation or an addition of our fixed costs and the variable costs. We say the variable costs change with the level of production. We only pay them when we are producing. Our fixed costs do not change with the level of production. Whether you are producing or not, we pay or we incur them. So when you are getting our total cost at the end of the day, we get a summation. We add the fixed costs and the variable cost to come up with what we call the total cost. Now, that total cost is very important. Yesterday, when you're looking at gross margins, you must have looked at what we call net revenue or net income. Now, the net income is what you get after selling whatever you're selling. But to get profitability, to find out how much profit you have made, you get your revenue, then you subtract the total costs. So profitability is equal to the total revenue or total income minus total costs. And we are saying total costs are a summation of the variable costs and the fixed costs. Okay? Now, after the total costs, we have another type of cost called the average cost. Average. This one is the simplest. Average. Take an example. In fact, let's use the example which is on the screen. Now, if you're a farmer and you're spending 200,000 shillings to produce 40 trays of eggs, 200,000 shillings produce 40 trays of eggs. What is the average cost of producing a tray? Now, it is simple. When you're calculating average cost, you just get your total cost and divide by the units of output that you produced. Now, using the example we have, if you spent 200,000 and that was your total cost, and you divided it by the units of output, in this case our units of output are the 40 trays of eggs. So if you have 200,000 and you divide it by the 40 trays, there you will be finding out what we call the average cost. So from our division there, you realize the average cost is 5,000. But what does it imply? It means that to produce one tray of eggs, a farmer has to spend 5,000 shillings. Okay? So, in a simple summary, we need to remind ourselves that we have 7 main types of costs. We have 7 main types of costs, and it is very important that students do what? Understand these costs. Now, our 7th type of cost is what we call marginal cost. That one there. Now, the marginal cost, the word marginal in economics means extra. Whenever you hear that word marginal, it means extra. If I supply Chibulieses with maybe, let's say, rice, and the students consume 5 bags of rice per week, then the population of the school increases, and the school tells me that add us 1 extra bag. That extra bag would be marginal. Okay? That extra bag would be marginal. I want you to understand first, before you have an example here, is what I want you to get is that marginal means extra. You're a farmer. Someone tells you, supply me with 10 trays of eggs. And you produce the 10 trays, for example, you produce the 10 trays at 50,000. But then the person tells you, okay, instead of 10, add me 1 more tray. The amount of money you would spend to produce that extra tray would be the marginal cost. Now on your screen, we have an example there. We are saying that the cost of producing 5 bags of carrots is 60,000. 5 bags, 60,000. Okay? And the cost of producing 6 bags is 75,000. if you are to calculate the marginal cost just means the cost of producing the total cost of producing, including the extra, minus the original cost. So we are having here, in our calculation, we are saying that the marginal cost would be equal to 75,000, which is the cost of producing 6, minus 60,000, which is the cost of producing 5. If you realize the difference between 6 and 5 is 1. So the cost of producing that extra 1 bag would be the marginal cost, and in this case it is 15,000 shillings. But always remember, marginal cost is the cost incurred when you are producing an extra unit of output. Okay? So there we have a summary of these costs. Can run through them quickly. Explicit cost, costs that are easily recognized and you cannot forget. Implicit, costs that are not easy to recognize and most times we forget them. For example, family labor. Variable costs, costs that change with the level of production. When production is high, they are high. When production is low, they are low. Fixed costs, costs that do not change with the level of production. Whether you are producing or you are not producing, they are there. You continue paying rent, electricity, taxation, insurance. You have to pay those. Those are fixed costs. Then you have total costs. We said total costs are a summation or an addition of the fixed costs and the variable costs. Then we have the average cost, which we get by dividing the total cost by the units of output. Then lastly we have what we call the marginal cost, and we said marginal cost is the cost of producing an extra unit of output. Okay? So after that we need to know, after knowing these costs, we need to know how we can reduce them. If you're a farmer, you know the different costs. How do you reduce them? Because there's no way you can make much profit when you're incurring a lot of cost. So you need to find mechanisms, you need to find ways of reducing these costs. And this is how we do. So one is through proper planning. Now, proper planning is very important. For example, if you know that you have a number of workers, don't employ both permanent and, don't employ permanent people only. Employ both permanent and the contract. So that at the time you're not producing, you don't spend. But if you employ only permanent workers, when you're not producing, where are you going to get the money to pay them? That's why most firms, most companies have both permanent workers and those who are not permanent. So two, using optimum quantities of input. Now, there's what we call economies of scale. Now, if you're purchasing things in large quantities, you get some discounts. For example, if I'm buying maybe 1 tray, they may sell to me a tray of 1,000. But if I'm buying 100 trays, someone can sell to me at 10. So be a wise farmer. Always purchase things in large quantities. If you're purchasing something, purchase in a dozen. Why would you buy one? Maybe buy a dozen. There will be some small deficit there. And the small amount may look small, but at the end of the day, that's how we make profit. Then 3, we need to maintain our the fixed assets. For example, the buildings, we need to service our tractors well so that we do not continue spending on them every now and then. Okay? Then the other way is by using affordable resources in the production process. Now, you realize in our classes, I always tell you that things that you can do on the farm, do them. Why would you go and buy feeds? Why can't you make your own feeds? Or if you know what you call fish meal, we get it from fish. Why would you go and buy expensive fish to crush to make the fish meal? Why don't you buy silver fish? So you need to be a rational farmer. Be informed. Try to reduce the cost as much as possible. Then improve the working conditions of the work at the places of work. If people are working in good conditions, they avoid wastage. And once wastage is avoided, productivity is improved. And when productivity is improved, trust me, we shall realize the profits that we want. Then the other way would be getting inputs. Okay? Get inputs from a reliable source. Avoid these funny people. Get inputs from a reliable source. And but when I say reliable, it does not always mean that now you go to your neighbor. No, the neighbor may be there. It must be reliable, but of good quality. Okay? So from there, there's another concept that we need to move on. But as we head there, you need to realize, as we move there, you need to realize that there is some little work I've given you there to try out. You need to know these different costs, and please try out that exercise. So after those revision questions, let's move on. Our final bit for today is what we call product combinations in farming. Now, if you have proper product combination, then you can be able to reduce costs in farming. Product combination just means what enterprises, what things are you going to deal in? There are things that are competitive. For example, me as a wise farmer, if I have, for example, I have if I have a mixed farm, wise farmer would have a mixed farm. The dung you get from the animals, you use that dung in your crop gardens. I would spare money. I will not be buying fertilizer because I'm wise. I'm combining things correctly. I've decided to keep poultry, which can give me good quality manure, which I can use in my banana plantation. I will not buy the fertilizer. Okay? Now, the way you decide, what you decide to deal in is very, very important. It is very important to choose enterprises correctly. You may end up choosing enterprises that are competitive. That when I say are competitive, it implies that they use the same resources. For example, you may decide to say, me, I'm going to grow crops, okay, on this half of this plot, and on half of the other plot, maybe I'm going to rear cattle. Now, at some point, you may want to increase the amount of cattle that you have. There's no way you're going to increase the amount of cattle without reducing the amount of land for crops. So you need to be very, very careful when you are choosing these enterprises that we have to deal in. Now, when you are looking at these product combinations, we have 4 main types of product combinations. Okay? There are 4. I need to remember that. There are 4 main types of product combinations, and those product combinations each has their advantage and disadvantage. Okay? So when we go through them, yes, now on your screen you can see we have 2 there, but the 2 are on the next slide. We have 4 of them. Once you have a good understanding of those 4 product combinations, you will be a happy farmer because you will be able to make a lot of profit. Remember, these days you do carry out agriculture as a source of revenue, as a source of income. So the first type I want to call the competitive products. Now, the word competitive comes from the English word compete, fighting for the same. Okay? Now, competitive products, here we are talking of products that require the same resources in their production process. If you have to produce X, it requires the same materials to produce, just like Y requires. There we say they are competitive. And the example we are having here is if you have a limited amount of land, maybe land, like I was using our example of our lower football pitch. If you have land the size of our lower football pitch, if you divided that land into 2, one side from the center half line, one side you rear animals, on the other side you grow crops. There is no way you are going to increase the number of animals without reducing the land which is there for growing crops. The crops and the animals are sharing, they are fighting, they are competing for the same resource, and in this case the resource is the land. So competitive products are products that require the same resources in their production process. There is no way you can increase the production of one without reducing or interfering with the production of the other. Then two, we have what we call complementary products, from the word complement. Now, these ones are good. They can coexist without interfering. They can coexist without interfering with the presence of the other. They can grow together, or you can keep them together without any competition. Let's have an example. If you have a pasture land, you know what a pasture land is? Where you take your animals to graze. You have maybe grass pastures growing there. If you decided to grow some legumes in that pasture land, there is no bad effect of the legumes on the pasture, and there is no bad effect of the pasture on the legumes. They complement each other. The legumes, in fact, make the soil even more fertile, and the grass pasture will benefit. Remember, in our senior 2 in crop science, we say that legumes have the ability of fixing nitrogen into the soil, hence improving the fertility of the soil. So complementary products are those that can be produced with the same resource without competing for the resource. Then 3, we have what we call joint products. Joint. Now, joint products are products that result from the same production process. That one is the simplest. They result from the same production process. There's no way you can get one without getting the other. I know you're itching with examples there. You cannot get one without getting the other. Now, let's have an example. There's no way we are going to have beef. There's no way we are going to get beef without getting skins or hides. There's no way we are going to get beef without getting skins or hides. There's no way we can get cotton without getting cotton seeds. I don't know whether you have ever visited Kakira Sugar Works. It makes sugar. There's no way we can get sugar without getting that residue, what you call bagasse. So, products that come or result from the same production process are what you call joint products. There's no way you can get one without getting the other. Then lastly, we have what we call supplementary products. And supplementary, these supplementary products, they're a bit tricky. Now, supplementary products can coexist without affecting each other at the beginning. But when you increase the scale of production, they begin competing. Let's have an example. If I am a dairy farmer and I keep some few chicken, if I'm a dairy farmer and I keep some few chicken on my dairy farm, the chicken, they have no effect on the animals. The chicken have no effect on the animals. Whether the chicken are there or not there, the dairy animals will be present. Now, in this case we say that the chicken are supplementing the dairy. They are supplementing the dairy farm. Okay? The main thing we are having are the dairy animals, but we can decide to have a few chicken there. They have no effect on the productivity of the animals. However, if you decide to scale up the number of chicken you are keeping there, they become competitive. That's why I said supplementary products are a bit tricky. At the beginning, they don't have effect, but when you scale up, when you increase the productivity, like this chicken, if I was keeping like 100, then I decide to keep like 500. there will be an effect. So supplementary products are not supplementary forever. If you increase the scale of production, they become competitive. Okay? We need to always remember that. Okay? So, in our summary here, we're saying our product combinations are mainly 4. We have competitive products, products that strive, that use the same resources. Okay? Then you have complementary products, products that can coexist without having any negative effect on each other. Then 3, we had our joint products, and we said that the joint products are products that result from the same production process. You cannot have one without having the other. Then you have, lastly, our supplementary products. We said supplementary products are those that can coexist at the beginning without competing for the resources. However, when you decide to scale up, when you decide to increase the productivity of one or both of them, they begin competing. Okay? So, that is our main business for today. There are some revision questions there that I would want you to attempt. Just like you did the other time, you will try to share feedback with us so that we know what to do in our next session. So finally, today we had a review, simple review of elasticity. Then we went to costs, agriculture. Our costs, we said they are mainly 7. We had the explicit, implicit, variable, the fixed, the total cost, average cost, and the marginal cost. Then in terms of product combinations, I said they are mainly 4. We have the competitive, the complementary, the supplementary, and the joint products. So please, I know you have that work with you, but try to now look for questions regarding what you have discussed today. In the handout that we gave you, the questions that we gave you, try as much as possible to look for those questions and try to do what? To attempt. Okay? So, in the case of any other issues, yes, we are receiving some questions from you. Yes, those I said product combinations are 4. We are calling them product combinations because someone is asking, why are they product combinations or enterprises? We are calling them product combinations because at the end of out of the enterprise we get a product. So whether it is product combination or enterprise combination, it's very, very important for you to choose wisely. A wise farmer will choose enterprises that support each other. In that way, you can be able to reduce what? Your costs of farming. And once you reduce costs of farming, be assured your profit levels will be high. Okay? So, students, thank you very much for attending. Till next time. Have a nice evening. Students, thank you very much for attending. Till next time. Have a nice evening.